The morning sun barely pierced the thick clouds hanging over her village, casting a grey light over the cobblestone streets. Every sound seemed sharper, more pronounced: the caw of a crow, the distant clatter of carts, the soft shuffle of feet across stone. Luna moved quietly, her silver hair brushing against her shoulders as she carried a basket filled with provisions. Today was no ordinary day. Something had changed, something she could feel in the weight of the air and the tension in the villages. She had learned the world could betray you when you least expected it. She had trusted people, family, friends, even neighbors, and yet everything she had relied on had crumbled. A letter had arrived yesterday, unsigned and cruelly precise, revealing secrets she had hoped were buried. Her world felt hollow now, as if the ground beneath her had turned to smoke. Luna stopped at the small fountain in the center of the village, staring at the ripple of water in silence. The villagers hurried past her, avoiding eye contact. Whispers followed her like shadows. She had been betrayed, and the weight of it left her feeling small, exposed, and fragile. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down the basket, the contents clinking softly. "I trusted him," she murmured to herself, voice barely above a whisper, "and he turned against me." She remembered the day she had first confided in her closest ally, thinking their bond was unbreakable. They had shared laughter, secrets, and quiet moments of hope. But yesterday's revelation had shown her the truth: he had deceived her, hidden his motives, and acted in a way that endangered everything she held dear. Luna's heart ached, a raw, unfamiliar pain that left her feeling unmoored. She had no choice but to leave. Staying in the village now was dangerous, not only for her heart, but for her safety. She packed the few belongings she could carry, and set out toward the distant mountains where the stories spoke of safety under the rule of the Alpha King. He was said to be fierce, commanding, and merciless to those who threatened his people, but merciful and protective to those who had earned his trust. Her journey began quietly, each step heavy with uncertainty. The forest path was narrow, lined with ancient trees that whispered in the wind. She kept to the shadows, her senses alert. Every snapping twig or rustle of leaves set her nerves on edge, reminding her of the betrayal she had escaped and the danger that might still follow. Luna paused at a small clearing, catching her breath and scanning the horizon. She tried to focus on the practicalities: food, water, shelter, but the ache in her chest refused to be ignored. She had been alone for so long, and now the world felt both vast and threatening. For the first time, she allowed herself a shiver of fear. It was then that she noticed a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. Tall, imposing, and yet calm, the man's presence was unmistakable. His armor gleamed faintly even in the muted light, and his amber eyes, sharp and observant, fixed on her. Luna froze, unsure whether to run or speak, her instincts telling her both danger and opportunity. "Do not be afraid," the figure said, voice low but commanding. "I am aware of your situation. You are safe for now, but you will need guidance." Luna's heart pounded. She had heard stories of the Alpha King, how he could be ruthless, fearless, and unyielding, but there was a steadiness in his tone that hinted at protection rather than threat. Still, her experiences had taught her caution. I don't know if I can trust anyone," she admitted quietly, eyes searching his for deception. The Alpha King's gaze softened, though it did not lose its intensity. "Trust is earned, not given lightly," he said. "I do not ask for it blindly, but I will ensure your safety, and I will teach you how to protect yourself. You are in need of guidance, and I am willing to provide it." Something in his words, the certainty, the calm, the promise of protections, to a flicker of hope in her chest. Luna had been betrayed by those she trusted most. But here was a figure offering safety without expectation, guidance without judgment. It was foreign, yet strangely comforting. She nodded slowly, still wary, but willing to take the risk. "I will go with you," she said, voice trembling but resolute. I have nowhere else to turn." The Alpha King inclined his head. "Good, we leave at once. Stay close and observe. Danger is never far for those who have been betrayed, but with vigilance, composure, and guidance, you will survive and learn to thrive." Their journey to the palace was quiet. Luna walked just behind him, careful to match his pace without faltering. The Alpha King did not need to speak often. His presence alone was a lesson in composure, confidence, and awareness. She observed everything, the way he scanned the trees, the subtle signals he gave with his hands and eyes, the way he moved without drawing attention, yet remained ready for any threat. By the time the palace walls came into view, Luna felt a mix of awe and relief. The vast gates, guarded by sentries in gleaming armor, seemed a fortress against the dangers she had fled. She realized that for the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt the smallest flicker of security inside the palace. The Alpha King led her through grand halls and courtyards, each step purposeful. "Here you will be safe," he said. "You will also learn. The world beyond these walls is harsh, but it can be navigated. You will gain strength, insight, and vigilance. And when the time comes, you will be able to protect yourself without fear." Luna felt a strange warmth in her chest. Safety, guidance, and the promise of learning, not threats, not expectations, not deception, were offered freely. She had never experienced such clarity in her life. She wanted to believe, and perhaps, slowly, she began to trust. In the days that followed, Luna learned the rhythm of palace life. She observed courtiers and staff, noting the subtle hierarchies and the flow of duties. The Alpha King allowed her independence, but remained vigilant, silently teaching her how to read people, anticipate problems, and maintain composure even when uncertainty loomed at night. Luna would write in her notebook, recording observations, reflections, and lessons learned. Each word reminded her that while betrayal had shattered her previous world, this new environment, structured, protective, and guided by a fierce yet fair Alpha King, was a place where she could rebuild. She remembered the fear she had felt in the village, the weight of deception pressing down on her chest, and compared it to the quiet reassurance she now felt in the palace corridors. Here she was not powerless. Here she was under protection, and slowly she began to feel capable of standing, observing, and understanding the world once more. One evening, the Alpha King approached her quietly as she gazed out from a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. "You have been attentive," he said softly, "observing, learning, and reflecting. That is the first step toward strength. Remember this: vigilance without fear, composure without hesitation, and patience without doubt. These will be your greatest allies." Luna nodded, her hands gripping the balcony railing as she absorbed the words. I will try, Your Majesty," she whispered. "I want to learn, and I want to be strong." The Alpha King's amber eyes softened, reflecting approval and a rare warmth. "Good, you will learn. You will grow. And when the world tries to betray you again, as it inevitably will, you will be prepared not only to survive, but to act with wisdom, courage, and composure. I will guide you, but you must also trust yourself." Luna let out a quiet breath, feeling the first stirrings of hope and determination. The betrayal that had once shattered her life had led her here, to a place of safety, guidance, and the possibility of strength. She had a protector, a mentor, and perhaps, in time, the ability to rebuild the confidence and trust that had been stolen from her. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope. The forest was quiet now, almost unnaturally so, as if even the birds and wind were aware of the tension surrounding Luna. She followed the Alpha King cautiously, every step measured, her senses alert. The betrayal she had escaped still lingered like a shadow at the edges of her mind, making her hesitant to trust anyone, even the man who had saved her from danger. Yet the Alpha King moved with a calm authority that demanded attention. Each footstep was deliberate, each glance scanning the terrain, measuring potential threats. Luna could not help but notice his composure, the way he seemed to anticipate danger before it appeared. It was reassuring, though she could not yet admit it to herself. "You do not need to speak," he said finally, voice low but firm, breaking the silence. Observing quietly is often more valuable than speaking too soon. Luna nodded, though her throat felt tight. She had learned too well that words could betray trust, but she could listen and watch. She watched him now, noting the subtle ways he moved his stance, always balanced. Shoulders relaxed but ready, hands near the hilt of his sword without tension. He was a guardian, a sentinel, and perhaps, she realized slowly, someone she could rely on. "Why? Why are you helping me?" she asked finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Why protect someone like me?" The Alpha King's amber eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. "Because you are vulnerable and in danger," he said simply. "And because it is my duty to protect those who cannot yet protect themselves. You need guidance and protection, and I provide it. That is enough reason." She blinked, surprised at the simplicity of his answer. There was no pretense, no expectation, only clarity. He did not demand loyalty, nor did he speak of reward. His protection was offered freely, without conditions, and for the first time in days. Luna felt the tiniest flicker of relief. The journey continued, the path winding through dense woods and over gentle hills. The Alpha King remained vigilant, silent except for occasional instructions or observations. "Keep your steps light," he advised at one point, noticing her heavy tread. "Avoid drawing attention. Observe your surroundings and anticipate what might happen before it does." Luna did her best, mirroring his movements, though every snapped twig underfoot made her jump. Yet she began to understand that his words were not merely instructions, they were lessons in awareness, patience, and composure. She listened carefully, trying to absorb everything, knowing each piece of guidance could one day save her life. By mid-afternoon, the forest opened to a small glade with a bubbling stream. The Alpha King stopped and gestured for her to rest. "Drink, eat if you need to," he said. "Even the vigilant need to care for themselves. Fatigue, clouds, judgment, and slows reaction. Remember this." Luna lowered her basket and knelt by the water, sipping cautiously. She glanced at him, wondering if he ever relaxed, if the fierce, commanding presence she saw could ever be anything but alert. Yet even here, by the gentle stream, he seemed calm, not distant, but watchful in a quiet, controlled way. "You move cautiously," he observed, amber eyes noting her every gesture. "Good, but vigilance is most effective when paired with confidence. Fear alone is not protection. You must balance caution with assurance." I am not sure I understand," Luna admitted, splashing water on her hands. "I've always been afraid of betrayal, of danger. How can I be confident when the world has already deceived me?" The Alpha King's gaze softened slightly. "Experience teaches caution. Reflection and practice teach confidence. You have learned to notice the world, to assess threats, and to survive. That is the foundation. Confidence comes with the knowledge that you can act, even when fear is present. She nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. Confidence was not absence of fear, it was the ability to act despite it. It was something she had never truly known, yet something she could learn under his guidance. As they continued, Luna noticed small signs of danger that she had previously overlooked trustling in the underbrush. The fleeting shadow of a hawk, a fallen branch, positioned like a warning. Each time, the Alpha King would point subtly, teaching her to recognize patterns, to anticipate rather than react. "You are learning," he said quietly at one point, amber eyes fixed on her. "Do not underestimate your own perception. Observing and anticipating are just as important as action. Remember, vigilance is strength, and composure is power." By evening, they reached a small, secluded cabin on the edge of the forest. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the simple structure seemed a haven in the wilderness. The Alpha King opened the door and gestured for her to enter. "This will be your refuge for the night. Safe, simple, and secure. Tomorrow, we continue training your awareness and response skills." Inside, the cabin was modest but warm. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the Alpha King indicated a small cot for her. "Rest. You have learned much today, but the mind and body need recovery. Observation without fatigue is far more effective than constant alertness." Luna settled onto the cot, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion and relief. The day had been long, filled with movement, lessons, and the strange mix of fear and trust. She realized that despite her initial hesitation, she had begun to rely on the Alpha King not just for protection, but for guidance, reassurance, and understanding. "Why me?" she asked softly, as he arranged the firewood nearby. "Why take someone like me under your protection? Others are stronger, braver, more deserving." The Alpha King paused, amber eyes reflecting the firelight. "Strength alone does not dictate who deserves protection," he said calmly. "The vulnerable, the observant, and the willing to learn are just as worthy. You have the potential to survive, to grow, and to act with wisdom. That potential is worth safeguarding." Luna felt a warmth spread through her chest. Potentially he saw something in her that even she had doubted existed. She realized that his protection was not merely physical, but also a belief in her ability to rise above fear and betrayal. I will try to live up to your trust," she whispered, voice trembling. "I will observe, learn, and grow, and I will not falter." The Alpha King nodded, a rare expression of approval softening his features. "Do not aim for perfection. Aim for progress, awareness, and composure. That is strength, and that is resilience. You are capable of more than you imagine, Luna. Remember this." The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls as night deepened. Luna lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling, replaying the lessons and observations of the day. She thought about the betrayal that had shattered her life, the fear that had followed, and the strange, steady presence of the Alpha King who had taken her under his wing. For the first time in weeks, perhaps months, she felt a flicker of hope. She could survive. She could grow. She could trust slowly, carefully, and wisely, and with the Alpha King guiding her, teaching her and protecting her, maybe, just maybe, she could rebuild the life that had been stolen from her, outside. The forest whispered, the wind rustling through leaves, as if acknowledging her resolve. Luna closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the fire and the quiet vigilance of the Alpha King soothe her. She was not alone. She had a protector, a mentor, and a guide in this new chapter of her life. She was determined to learn, to grow, and to rise above the shadows of betrayal. And as the moon rose over the treetops, bathing the cabin in silver light, Luna understood that the path ahead would be challenging, but with guidance, vigilance, and courage, she would face it without fear. The palace loomed ahead, its towering walls bathed in the soft golden light of dawn. Luna's chest tightened as she approached the massive gates, her heart pounding with a mix of awe and apprehension. After days in the forest, guided and protected by the Alpha King, she had finally arrived at the place that would be her new home, her refuge, and the center of her lessons in vigilance and composure. The Alpha King walked beside her, steps measured and steady. Even now, she could feel his presence come, commanding and unwavering. Every eye along the walls seemed to follow him, as if aware of the authority he carried. Luna realized that within these walls, protection was not only about strength, but about respect, order, and the subtle power of presence. This is your first lesson in observation, the Alpha King said quietly, amber eyes scanning the palace courtyard. The palace is a place of structure, routine, and subtle influence. Watch how people move, how they interact, and how they respond to authority. Understanding these patterns is essential for survival and for influence. Luna nodded, clutching her small bag tightly. She had learned to observe carefully in the forest, but the palace presented a new challenge. It was not just about spotting danger, it was about reading subtle cues, understanding social dynamics, and navigating a world of rules she had never encountered before. The gates opened with a low, resonant groan, and Luna stepped inside. The courtyards were expansive, paved with polished stones that reflected the morning sun. Servants moved swiftly and quietly, carrying baskets, sweeping floors, and attending to preparations with practiced efficiency. Guards stood at attention, their armor gleaming and their posture impeccable. Everything seemed precise, controlled, and purposeful. Observe first, the Alpha King instructed. Do not act until you understand the rhythm of the place. Mistakes here are noted, and trust is earned slowly. Luna watched the staff, noting the subtle hierarchy among them, the way senior attendants directed younger ones, the way messages traveled from one courtyard to another, and the unspoken rules that governed interactions. She made mental notes, impressed by the intricate order of the palace. Even in its grandeur, the Alpha King had ensured that structure, discipline, and attentiveness prevailed. Good, he said after a few minutes. You notice patterns. That is the first step. Now, walk with me and observe the staff's reactions. Pay attention to tone, gestures, and unspoken cues. They moved through the palace corridors, Luna following closely. She noticed subtle changes in demeanor when the Alpha King entered a room, bowing of heads, a lowering of eyes, a brief tension in shoulders. Yet, when he was simply observing, there was no fear, only respect. Luna realized that his influence was subtle, yet absolute. Authority did not always need to be loud or forceful. Sometimes it was quiet, deliberate, and unwavering. You are learning more than observation, the Alpha King said, amber eyes noting her careful attention. You are learning patience. Do not rush to act or speak. Watch first, understand second, respond third. That is the rhythm of influence in any structured environment. As they entered a smaller chamber, Luna saw a group of attendants practicing ceremonial duties. They moved in perfect synchronization, yet there were small errors that only an observant eye would notice: a misplaced step, a slightly uneven arrangement of objects, a subtle hesitation in gesture. Notice these errors, the Alpha King said softly. Mistakes are inevitable, but their detection and correction is a mark of vigilance and composure. You will be responsible for ensuring that small errors do not escalate into larger problems. Begin by noting them, not correcting them immediately. Understanding the pattern is more important than immediate action. Luna observed carefully, jotting notes in a small leather-bound notebook. Each correction she noted mentally, each subtle misalignment catalogued. She could feel herself growing more confident in her ability to read the environment, to anticipate issues, and to act with composure. Later, the Alpha King led her to the palace kitchens, a bustling place filled with the aroma of bread, roasting meat, and fresh herbs. Staff moved with purpose, yet there was a flow, a rhythm that allowed the operation to proceed smoothly. Luna was instructed to observe and then assist under guidance. Learning to act within the structured environment, you may feel overwhelmed, he said quietly, standing beside her as she carried a tray of bread. Do not let that overwhelm dictate your actions. Confidence grows from competence. Act carefully, observe closely, and trust your understanding of the environment. Luna nodded, moving slowly but deliberately. She adjusted the placement of trays, noticed an improperly cleaned surface, and suggested a subtle rearrangement of supplies to improve efficiency. The staff did not react with annoyance. They were accustomed to careful observation and guidance. The Alpha King's approval, subtle but present, encouraged her as evening fell. Luna was guided to her quarters, a modest room with a single window overlooking the palace gardens. The room was simple yet comfortable, a place where she could rest, reflect, and continue her lessons in observation, patience, and composure. You have done well today, the Alpha King said, amber eyes reflecting the fading light. Remember, the palace is not merely a place of beauty or grandeur. It is a place of learning, discipline, and influence. Every action, no matter how small, has consequences. You are here to understand these consequences and to grow capable within them. Luna nodded, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. For the first time since the betrayal that had shattered her world, she felt a sense of purpose. She was learning, growing, and slowly reclaiming the confidence that had been stolen from her that night. As the moon rose over the palace gardens, Luna sat by her window, notebook in hand, reflecting on the lessons of the day. She had observed, learned, and acted carefully. She had begun to understand the rhythm of the palace and the subtle power of vigilance, composure, and careful action. The Alpha King's presence, steady and unwavering, had shown her that protection was not merely physical, it was guidance, mentorship, and belief in her ability to rise above fear and uncertainty. She realized that she was no longer entirely alone. She had a protector, a teacher, and perhaps, in time, a mentor who would guide her toward strength, wisdom, and confidence. And as the stars glittered above the palace, Luna allowed herself a quiet thought. Maybe, just maybe, this place and the fierce, watchful figure of the Alpha King could help her rebuild the trust, confidence, and courage that had been shattered by betrayal. The next morning, the palace corridors hummed with activity, soft footfalls echoing against polished stone floors. Luna rose early, eager to continue her lessons under the watchful guidance of the Alpha King. The betrayal that had shattered her, life still lingered in her mind, but she had learned to channel fear into awareness and hesitation into observation. The Alpha King awaited her in the courtyard, his presence commanding yet calm. Amber eyes scanned the surroundings with the precision of a predator observing a vast territory. Yet there was no threat in his gaze-only guidance. Today, he said, his voice low but steady, we focus on vigilance. Awareness is not passive. It is the art of seeing, understanding, and anticipating without panic or rash action. You must learn to read subtle signs, predict outcomes, and respond effectively. That is the mark of strength. Luna nodded, her hands tightening around her notebook. Vigilance had been one of her weaknesses. In the village, she had been caught off guard too many times. Now, under his guidance, she was determined to master it. They began in the palace gardens, a sprawling expanse of neatly trimmed hedges, marble statues, and winding paths. The gardens were serene, almost deceptively calm. The Alpha King gestured for Luna to walk slowly, observing everything: the flutter of a bird's wings, the rustle of leaves, the subtle shift of sunlight across the pathways. Notice the small details, he instructed. Every movement, every sound carries information. Ignoring them can be dangerous. Vigilance is about understanding the environment, predicting potential threats, and remaining composed in the face of uncertainty. Luna moved carefully, scanning the surroundings as he had taught. She noted the way a gardener paused briefly, glancing over his shoulder, or the way the fountain's water rippled in a pattern disturbed by the wind. Each small observation became a piece of a larger puzzle, training her mind to remain alert without panic. "Good," the Alpha King said, observing her keenly. "You notice patterns. Now anticipate. Consider what could happen, and plan how you would respond." He demonstrated with a simple example, a branch shaking as a squirrel ran across it. He asked Luna to predict where the animal would go, how it might disturb the environment, and what subtle signs would reveal its presence. She focused, considering each possibility, and when the squirrel darted across the path exactly as she had predicted, the Alpha King nodded once, approvingly. "You are learning," he said. "Confidence grows from observation and understanding. Never underestimate the value of calm, deliberate analysis." Later, they moved to the palace corridors. Here, vigilance required not only observation of the environment, but of people. Staff and courtiers moved about their duties, interactions subtle yet revealing. The Alpha King instructed Luna to note body language, tone, and unspoken cues, gestures that betrayed nervousness, hesitation, or deception. "You must read between words," he explained. "Not everything is spoken aloud, and not all intentions are revealed openly. The smallest twitch, the quietest glance, can reveal much." Luna watched attentively, noticing a page shifting nervously, a servant avoiding eye contact, and a messenger speaking with slight tension in his tone. Each observation became a lesson in subtlety, teaching her that vigilance was more than alertness, was understanding, intuition, and careful interpretation. As the sun reached its zenith, the Alpha King introduced a more practical exercise. He positioned her at the center of a small courtyard and asked her to remain silent. Observing potential threats he placed around her, he moved silently, setting objects, leaving subtle clues, and occasionally creating minor disturbances to test her focus. At first, Luna was hesitant. Her heart raced with the awareness that mistakes could have consequences. But as she practiced, her confidence grew. She noted every shift in light, every faint sound, every movement in the peripheral vision. She learned to anticipate, not react, but anticipate. Vigilance is not fear, the Alpha King reminded her. It is preparation. It is the ability to act calmly, decisively, and appropriately. When you are vigilant, danger is never unexpected, and your response is always measured. By late afternoon, Luna's stamina was tested further. The Alpha King led her through hidden passages, teaching her escape routes, observation points, and ways to remain unnoticed. She learned to move silently, to blend with her environment, and to use observation as a form of early defense. Each lesson built on the last, reinforcing patience, composure, and awareness. During a break, they sat beneath a marble archway, the shadows stretching long in the fading light. Luna, exhausted but focused, asked the question that had lingered since her arrival. Why? Why teach me all this? Why not just keep me safe and leave me ignorant of danger? The Alpha King's amber eyes held hers, calm and unwavering. Protection without knowledge is fragile, he said. If you cannot recognize danger, anticipate it, or respond effectively, then safety is temporary. Teaching you vigilance ensures that you are capable, not dependent. True protection empowers, it does not shelter. Luna reflected on his words. She had spent years sheltered by trust in others, only to be betrayed. She understood now that his method was different. He was not keeping her ignorant. He was preparing her to face the world with awareness, composure, and resilience. As evening fell, they returned to her quarters. Luna felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The lessons had been challenging, yet she sensed growth, subtle, yet undeniable. She was learning to trust her senses, to anticipate, and to remain composed under pressure. Before she retired for the night, the Alpha King placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, rare gesture of reassurance. "You are progressing," he said quietly. "The path is long, and challenges will continue. But each step, each observation, each moment of calm awareness brings you closer to becoming capable, confident, and resilient." Luna nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with physical comfort. It was the warmth of trust, guidance, and subtle affirmation, a feeling she had not experienced since the betrayal that had shattered her life. Lying in bed, she reviewed the day's lessons in her notebook: observation, anticipation, composure, and vigilance. Each skill was a brick in the foundation of her resilience. She understood now that the Alpha King's protection was not merely physical. It was guidance, mentorship, and empowerment. And as the moonlight spilled through her window, casting silver patterns across the floor, Luna allowed herself to feel a quiet hope. With vigilance, patience, and the guidance of her protector, she would navigate the dangers of the world. She would learn to stand firm, anticipate threats, and respond with composure. The betrayal that had once left her world fractured no longer defined her. She was under the watchful guidance of the Alpha King, learning, growing, and slowly reclaiming her confidence, awareness, and inner strength. And in that quiet moment, she understood that vigilance was more than survival, it was freedom. The morning air in the palace was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and fresh blossoms from the gardens. Luna had risen early, anticipation fluttering in her chest. Today was different from the lessons of observation and vigilance. The Alpha King had announced that she would face her first tester, real challenge designed to apply everything she had learned. They met in the courtyard, the golden sunlight casting long shadows across the polished stone. The Alpha King stood with his usual calm, commanding presence, amber eyes, sharp yet reassuring. Luna could feel her heart pounding, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Today, your vigilance and composure will be tested," he said, voice low and steady. "You will encounter a scenario designed to challenge your observation, your patience, and your courage. You are prepared, but remember, this is not merely about survival. It is about confidence, awareness, and measured response." Luna nodded, swallowing the tight lump in her throat. She trusted the Alpha King, but fear still lingered. The forest and palace corridors had taught her much, but now she would see if she could act under real pressure. The Alpha King led her to a narrow corridor lined with archways and shadowed alcoves. He explained that a visitor would approach an individual acting suspiciously, creating minor disturbances. Luna's task was to observe, anticipate, and act appropriately without rushing or panicking. At first, the corridor seemed empty. Luna's eyes scanned every shadow, noting subtle movements and listening for the faintest sounds. She caught the slight shuffle of footsteps behind a pillar, the whisper of cloth brushing stone, the faint scent of oil from a lantern flickering nearby. Each detail was a clue, teaching her patience and awareness. Suddenly, a hooded figure emerged from a side passage, moving with an air of caution yet intent. Luna's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to breathe steadily, recalling the Alpha King's lessons. Vigilance is preparation, composure is strength, observation is key. The figure approached a table in the corridor, pretending to read a letter, but subtly shifting objects around. Luna noted the discrepancies, immediately a misplaced quill, a faint smear of ink. The way the figure glanced nervously toward the end of the hall. "You see it," the Alpha King's voice whispered from behind a column. "Now consider your response. Anticipate what could happen next. Do not act hastily." Luna focused, imagining possible scenarios. The figure might attempt to steal, disrupt, or deceive. Each possibility required careful consideration. She weighed the risks and potential outcomes. Remembering the principles of composure and measured action, the figure reached for a small box on the table. Luna stepped forward, voice calm but assertive. "That does not belong to you," she said, keeping her tone steady, without anger or fear. The figure froze, startled by her clear observation. The Alpha King remained hidden, observing her every move, allowing her independence. Luna felt a surge of confidence. She could act, anticipate, and respond effectively. The figure hesitated, then retreated, disappearing into the shadows without further incident. "Well done," the Alpha King said quietly, stepping forward. His amber eyes reflected approval. "You observed, anticipated, and acted with composure. You did not overreact, nor did you hesitate unnecessarily. That is courage. That is vigilance applied." Luna's chest swelled with pride. She had faced a potential threat and responded correctly. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the exhilaration of realizing she was capable. For the first time, she truly felt the lessons of the past weeks taking root. Courage, the Alpha King continued, is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. You acted deliberately, thoughtfully, and effectively. That is the mark of strength. The day continued with smaller exercises, each designed to test her observation, patience, and response. Luna learned to interpret subtle cues, anticipate outcomes, and act with calm decisiveness. She realized that courage was not recklessness. It was the ability to remain steady under pressure, to trust her instincts, and to rely on the skills she had cultivated. During a brief respite, Luna and the Alpha King sat in the palace gardens. The sun was warm on their faces, and the gentle rustle of leaves provided a serene backdrop. Luna spoke quietly, her voice filled with reflection. I didn't think I could do it," she admitted. "I was afraid I would fail, that I wouldn't notice, that I would make a mistake." The Alpha King's gaze softened, amber eyes thoughtful. "Mistakes are not failure. They are lessons. What matters is the ability to learn from them, to adjust, and to continue with composure. Today, you demonstrated courage not because there was no fear, but because you acted despite it." Luna nodded, absorbing his words. Courage, vigilance, composure, they were not innate traits, but skills to be learned and practiced. And under the Alpha King's guidance, she felt herself growing stronger, more aware, and more confident as the sun began to set. Painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, the Alpha King led her back to her quarters. Luna felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment that was deeper than anything she had known since the betrayal that had shattered her world. She had faced fear, anticipated danger, and acted with wisdom and composure before she retired for the night. The Alpha King spoke once more, his voice low but steady. "Remember this, Luna, courage is built one step at a time. Each observation, each measured action, each moment of composure adds to your strength. You are capable of more than you know. Trust in your ability, and trust in the guidance that surrounds you." Luna lay in her bed, reflecting on the day's lessons. The test had been challenging, yet it had taught her the true meaning of courage, not boldness. Not recklessness, but the quiet strength to act thoughtfully, deliberately, and effectively. She realized that the Alpha King's protection was not merely about keeping her safe. It was about empowering her to face the world with confidence, vigilance, and courage as the moon rose over the palace. Casting silver light across her room, Luna felt a deep sense of resolve. She would continue to learn, grow, and strengthen herself under the Alpha King's guidance. The betrayal that had once left her world fractured no longer defined her. She was reclaiming her strength, step by step, lesson by lesson, guided by a protector who believed in her potential. And in that quiet night, Luna understood that courage was not a single act, it was a journey. A series of small, deliberate choices made with awareness, composure, and trust, and she was ready to walk that path. The morning sun spilled across the palace gardens, casting golden light over the stone paths and blooming flowers. Luna walked slowly, notebook in hand, reflecting on the lessons of the previous day. The test of courage had been daunting, but she had succeeded. She felt a quiet pride, tempered by the knowledge that there was still much to learn. The Alpha King awaited her at the edge of the gardens, standing beneath a tall archway of ivy. His posture was relaxed, yet every inch of his presence conveyed authority and vigilance. Amber eyes scanned the surroundings briefly before settling on her, and Luna felt that familiar mixture of reassurance and awe. "Good morning, Luna," he said, voice calm but carrying a weight of expectation. "Yesterday, you demonstrated courage and composure. Today, we focus on trust both in yourself and in the guidance you receive. Vigilance and courage are only effective when paired with trust. Without it, fear can undermine your skills." Luna nodded, her hands tightening on her notebook. Trust had always been difficult for her. Betrayal had taught her to be wary, to doubt, and to guard herself fiercely. Yet here, under the Alpha King's guidance, she felt the stirrings of something newer, quiet willingness to rely on his presence, his instruction, and his careful oversight. Their morning began with a walk through the palace corridors. The halls were alive with activity, courtiers and attendants moving in measured patterns, each step part of the rhythm of palace life. The Alpha King instructed Luna to observe carefully, noting both the explicit and subtle actions of the people around her. "Trust is built through observation and understanding," he explained. "When you recognize patterns, anticipate actions, and interpret behavior accurately, you can trust both yourself and the environment. Misplaced trust comes from ignorance. Knowledge creates confidence." Luna moved cautiously, following his lead. She noted a servant carrying a tray of delicate objects, another adjusting a tapestry, and a messenger moving swiftly between rooms. Each observation was catalogued mentally, and she began to anticipate the outcomes where the tray would be placed, how the tapestry might shift, and the messenger's next destination. "Excellent," the Alpha King said quietly. "You are seeing not just actions, but intentions. That is the foundation of trust. You can trust yourself when you recognize what is real and what is potential." As they reached a quiet chamber, he stopped and turned to her. "Today, I will allow you to act independently in a controlled scenario. Your task is to anticipate the needs of the environment, respond appropriately, and maintain composure without immediate guidance from me. This is a step forward in trust, both yours in yourself and mine in your abilities." Luna's chest tightened with anticipation. Acting independently was a challenge she had never faced in the palace. Yet, she remembered his lessons: observation, anticipation, composure, and measured action. She nodded. Taking a deep breath, the scenario began with small tasks, arranging books in the library according to specific patterns, noting misplaced objects in the chamber, and observing subtle discrepancies in the staff's movements. Each task required careful attention, thoughtful planning, and calm execution. At first, she hesitated, second-guessing herself. But gradually, confidence took root. She adjusted her actions based on careful observation, corrected errors without disrupting the flow of the room, and anticipated potential issues before they arose. Every step reinforced her trust in her own abilities. The Alpha King watched silently from a distance, allowing her independence while remaining close enough to intervene if necessary. His presence was reassuring, a subtle reminder that support was available without undermining her autonomy. After the exercises, they walked through the palace gardens once more. The gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine and roses, and the soft chirping of birds created a serene backdrop. Luna reflected on the morning's lessons. She had acted independently, trusted her judgment, and responded effectively to challenges. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of genuine self-reliance. Trust is reciprocal, the Alpha King said, breaking the silence. You have demonstrated that I can rely on your judgment, and in turn, you can rely on your own abilities. This bond strengthens both your confidence and your protection. Awareness, courage, and trust are interlinked. They support each other. Luna nodded thoughtfully. She had spent years doubting herself and others, but now she felt a growing sense of stability. Trust was no longer blind. It was informed by knowledge, observation, and experience. And with the Alpha King's guidance, she could navigate the world with confidence, knowing both her skills and her protector were reliable. In the afternoon, they moved to the training grounds. The Alpha King demonstrated techniques for assessing situations quickly, recognizing subtle threats, and responding with precision. Luna practiced alongside him, applying the lessons she had learned in observation and vigilance. Each step, each measured action, reinforced the connection between awareness and trust. You are progressing faster than expected, the Alpha King noted, amber eyes reflecting approval. Your composure is steady, your observation keen, and your actions deliberate. Trust yourself, Luna, and you will find that the world is less intimidating than it appears. Luna felt a surge of gratitude. The Alpha King's guidance was not merely protective, it was empowering. She realized that trust was not about reliance alone. It was about understanding, preparation, and the confidence to act wisely. She began to see that her bond with him was more than student and mentor. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, awareness, and the shared goal of mastery over fear and uncertainty. As evening approached, they returned to her quarters. The sky was painted with hues of pink and gold, the palace gardens bathed in soft light. Luna sat by the window, notebook in hand, reflecting on the day's lessons. She had faced new challenges, acted independently, and reinforced her trust in both herself and the Alpha King's guidance. Before nightfall, the Alpha King placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a rare gesture of reassurance and acknowledgement. The bond of trust is fragile, but essential, he said quietly. Nurture it through observation, reflection, and deliberate action. You are capable, Luna. Never doubt that. Luna nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with comfort alone. It was the warmth of respect, guidance, and the quiet affirmation of growth. She realized that the Alpha King's presence was not only protective, but also validating a reminder that her skills, vigilance, and courage were recognized and valued that night. As moonlight filtered through her window, Luna reflected on the journey she had undertaken. From betrayal and fear to vigilance, courage, and now trust, she had grown stronger, more aware, and more confident. The Alpha King had shown her that protection was not merely about shielding from danger, it was about fostering the skills, confidence, and insight necessary to navigate the world with composure and assurance. And in that quiet moment, Luna understood that the bond of trust was a foundation, not just for survival, but for growth, resilience, and the beginning of a partnership that would guide her through challenges yet to come. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the palace, casting long, warm rays across the corridors. Luna moved quietly, her notebook tucked under her arm, reflecting on the lessons she had learned about vigilance, courage, and trust. Yet, despite her growing confidence, there was a shadow lingering in her heart, a shadow from the past that refused to fade. She had spent years running from betrayal, from those who had sought to exploit her vulnerability. Now, under the Alpha King's guidance, she was learning to face danger with composure and skill. But the memories of past deceit and fear were persistent, surfacing unexpectedly, reminding her that the world could still be treacherous. The Alpha King awaited her in the library. Amber eyes, attentive, a calm presence in the midst of countless towering bookshelves. He observed her as she entered, noting the faint tension in her shoulders and the hesitation in her steps. "Today," he said quietly, "we confront remnants of your past. Shadows of fear, doubt, and betrayal can cloud judgment and weaken vigilance. Understanding and acknowledging them is the first step toward true resilience. You are prepared, but remember, composure and observation are your greatest tools." Luna swallowed, feeling the familiar ache in her chest. Facing her past was far more daunting than any practical exercise in the palace. Yet she knew he was right. Avoidance had kept her trapped in fear. Confrontation could free her. They began by walking through the palace gardens, a place of serenity, yet one that held subtle reminders of her previous lessons. The Alpha King instructed her to observe, anticipate, and interpret subtle changes in the environment, as well as in her own reactions. "Fear often disguises itself as caution," he said. "Learn to distinguish between genuine threats and shadows of memory. One is to be respected, the other to be acknowledged and set aside. Vigilance is about clarity, not paranoia." Luna nodded, scanning the pathways and hedges, focusing not only on external signs, but on the fluttering anxiety in her own chest. She could feel the tension in her shoulders, the quickened pulse, the faint tremor in her hands. Recognition alone was a small victory, the first step toward mastery over her past. As they approached a quiet courtyard, the Alpha King paused. "I have arranged a controlled scenario," he explained. "You will encounter individuals acting in ways similar to those who betrayed you. Your task is to observe, anticipate, and respond appropriately, without letting past fear dictate your actions. This is a test of resilience and composure." Luna's heart skipped a beat. She had dreaded this moment, the idea of confronting echoes of her past. Yet, she took a deep breath and followed his guidance, recalling the lessons of vigilance, courage, and trust. A figure approached, cloaked and cautious, moving with subtle intent. Luna's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. She observed carefully the way the figure shifted weight, glanced around, and adjusted the placement of objects in their path. Each movement was familiar, yet different, a controlled simulation of past threats. "You recognize the pattern," the Alpha King whispered. "Now, consider your response. Anticipate outcomes, plan your action, and maintain composure." Luna focused, drawing on every lesson learned. She noted the figure's subtle adjustments, the faint hesitation, and the intent to manipulate objects. Slowly, deliberately, she intervened, correcting a displaced item, guiding the figure away from sensitive areas, and maintaining a calm, authoritative presence. The figure paused, then retreated, the scenario complete. Luna exhaled a mixture of relief and exhilaration flooding her senses. She had faced shadows of her past and responded effectively, without fear overtaking her judgment. The Alpha King stepped forward, amber eyes reflecting approval. "Well done, Luna. You observed, anticipated, and acted with composure. You did not allow past betrayal to cloud your judgment. That is resilience. That is mastery over fear." Luna felt a surge of quiet pride. For the first time, she realized that her past, while painful, did not define her. She had grown stronger, more aware, and more capable under his guidance. The shadows of her past no longer held dominion over her actions. They were acknowledged, understood, and set aside. Throughout the afternoon, the Alpha King guided her through additional exercises designed to strengthen resilience. They navigated complex corridors, assessed subtle cues from staff and attendants, and anticipated potential disturbances. Each task reinforced the lessons of observation, composure, and trust, preparing Luna to face not just simulated challenges, but real ones with confidence. During a quiet moment in the gardens, Luna spoke softly, her voice tinged with reflection. I didn't realize how much the past still affected me. Even when I thought I was moving forward, fear and doubt lingered. Today, I feel different, lighter, somehow. The Alpha King's gaze softened, amber eyes steady and reassuring. Acknowledgement is the first step toward release. Fear rooted in memory can cloud judgment, but understanding it allows you to act with clarity. You have demonstrated not just vigilance, but courage in facing what you once feared. That is growth. Luna nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate deeply. The controlled confrontation had shown her that she could face her past without being consumed by it. The Alpha King had guided her not just to survive, but to reclaim her strength, resilience, and composure. As evening approached, they returned to her quarters. Luna felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, mingled with relief. She had faced shadows of her past and emerged stronger, more aware, and more confident. The Alpha King's guidance had transformed fear into understanding, and doubt into determination before nightfall. He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a gesture of reassurance and affirmation. "Resilience is not the absence of past pain," he said quietly. "It is the ability to acknowledge it, learn from it, and act with clarity. You are stronger than you realize, Luna. Never forget that." Luna lay in bed that night, moonlight filtering through the window, reflecting on the journey she had undertaken. From betrayal to vigilance, courage, trust, and now resilience, she had grown in ways she had never imagined. The Alpha King's presence had been a constant, steady guide, teaching her not just to survive, but to reclaim her life with composure and strength. And as the stars glittered above the palace, Luna understood that the shadows of the past no longer held power over her. She had faced them, acknowledged them, and moved beyond them, with the Alpha King by her side. She was ready to continue growing, learning, and embracing the path that lay ahead. The palace, once a place of uncertainty and challenge, had become a sanctuary, a place where vigilance, courage, trust, and resilience intertwined. And within that sanctuary, Luna felt a quiet certainty. The Alpha King's guidance had shown her not just protection, but empowerment, and with it, the strength to face whatever the future might hold. The palace corridors were alive with activity, sunlight streaming through tall windows and illuminating the polished floors. Luna moved among the staff and attendants, notebook in hand, reflecting on the lessons she had learned about vigilance, courage, trust, and resilience. Each day brought new challenges, and today promised a different kind of lesson, one about leadership. The Alpha King waited in the main hall, standing with his usual quiet authority. Amber eyes scanned the room, not with scrutiny, but with expectation. Luna approached, feeling a mix of anticipation and curiosity. Leadership had always seemed distant to her a responsibility she had never imagined for herself. Yet, under the Alpha King's guidance, she was beginning to understand that it was not about power alone, but about influence, responsibility, and care for those around her. "Good morning, Luna," he said, voice calm but carrying weight. "Today you will begin to understand the essence of leadership. A leader is not defined solely by strength or authority, but by the ability to guide, inspire, and empower others. Vigilance, courage, and trust are the foundation. Leadership builds upon them." Luna nodded, absorbing his words. She had always been cautious, careful to avoid drawing attention. The idea of leading others was daunting, but the lessons she had learned in observation, anticipation, and resilience gave her a sense of preparedness she had never felt before. They began in the palace gardens, a space where staff and attendants moved about their daily tasks. The Alpha King instructed Luna to observe not just the actions of individuals, but the subtle ways in which leadership manifested. How did a senior attendant guide a junior one? How did instructions flow without friction? How did influence extend beyond authority to inspire cooperation? "You must see leadership as subtle influence, not force," the Alpha King explained. "It is the ability to guide others toward a goal while maintaining respect, trust, and composure. Observe carefully and learn to discern when to act and when to allow guidance to flow naturally." Luna moved quietly, noting gestures, tones, and interactions. She saw the patience of a head attendant correcting a minor mistake, the encouragement in a nod or a smile, the way guidance was offered without condescension or force. Leadership, she realized, was not about command alone, it was about observation, empathy, and strategic influence. After a while, the Alpha King introduced a practical exercise. Luna was asked to assist in guiding a group of junior attendants through a routine task in the gardens. Her role was not to issue orders, but to lead by example, offering subtle corrections and encouragement where needed. At first, Luna hesitated. The attendants were unsure of her, and she doubted her ability to influence effectively. But as she focused on observation and gentle guidance, she began to find her rhythm. She pointed out subtle improvements in posture, placement of objects, and coordination, all without speaking loudly or forcefully. Her quiet composure, combined with her careful attention, earned their trust and cooperation. "Well done," the Alpha King said quietly, watching from a distance. "You guided without dominating. You inspired confidence without relying on authority alone. That is leadership in its most effective form." Luna felt a quiet surge of pride. Leadership was not about being in control. It was about understanding, guiding, and empowering others. She realized that the skills she had, vigilance, courage, and trust, were now tools she could use to influence and uplift those around her. The afternoon brought another challenge. The Alpha King had arranged a scenario in which Luna would need to coordinate a small group to solve a problem: disrupted delivery of supplies in the palace. She observed the situation, assessed the needs, and began to guide the group, offering clear instructions, encouragement, and subtle corrections. At first, the group hesitated, unsure of her capabilities. But Luna's steady composure, careful observation, and thoughtful guidance gradually won their confidence. By the end of the exercise, the problem was resolved efficiently, and the attendants moved with a sense of cooperation and respect. "Leadership," the Alpha King said quietly, as they walked through the courtyard afterward, "is earned through competence, trust, and patience. It is not given. It is built. Your ability to observe, anticipate, and act with composure allows you to inspire confidence in others. That is the mark of a true leader. Luna nodded thoughtfully. She had never imagined herself in such a role, yet she felt the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment. Leadership was not about asserting power, it was about understanding, influencing, and empowering others. The lessons of the past week's vigilance, courage, trust, resilience had prepared her for this moment. As evening fell, the Alpha King led her to a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, the palace bathed in a serene glow. Luna reflected on the day's lessons, feeling a growing sense of confidence and clarity. "You have demonstrated growth beyond what I expected," the Alpha King said, amber eyes steady and approving. "Leadership is not easy, and it requires patience, awareness, and the willingness to guide without dominating. You are learning well, Luna, and I trust that you will continue to develop these skills." Luna felt a warmth that had nothing to do with comfort alone. It was the warmth of affirmation, trust, and the quiet pride of knowing she was capable of guiding others with composure and care. She realized that the Alpha King's mentorship was not just protective, it was empowering, allowing her to embrace responsibility, confidence, and influence. That night, as moonlight spilled across her room, Luna wrote in her notebook. Leadership, she reflected, was more than authority, it was the ability to inspire, guide, and support. Vigilance, courage, trust, and resilience were the foundation. And today she had learned to apply them in a way that influenced and uplifted others. The palace, once a place of challenges and lessons in survival, had become a sanctuary for growth, learning, and self-discovery. And within its walls, Luna felt a quiet certainty with the Alpha King's guidance. She was not only safe, she was capable, confident, and ready to embrace the responsibilities that lay ahead. She closed her notebook, feeling a sense of resolve. The lessons of leadership were just beginning, but she knew that with vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and guidance, she could rise to meet them. And in that quiet night, Luna understood that leadership was not a position, it was a journey, a series of choices guided by awareness, composure, and care for others. The morning sun rose over the palace, casting a warm glow across the stone courtyards and gardens. Luna had woken early, feeling a mix of anticipation and determination. Each day brought new lessons, and today promised an entirely new type of challenge, one that would test her vigilance, courage, leadership, and trust in a single, unexpected scenario. The Alpha King met her in the main courtyard, his amber eyes sharp yet reassuring. He had already been briefed about the upcoming events, and Luna could sense that he had something special planned to test her growth. "Good morning, Luna," he said, voice calm but commanding attention. "Today you will face a series of unexpected challenges. These are designed to simulate real-life situations where vigilance, composure, and leadership must work together. You have learned much, but the true test comes when lessons are applied under pressure." Luna nodded, clutching her notebook. She felt a quiet determination. The previous lessons, courage in the face of fear, trust in herself, resilience against shadows of the past, and the first lessons in leadership had prepared her for this. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the calm presence of the Alpha King. The first challenge came quickly. A delivery of supplies, essential for the day's palace functions, had been misplaced. Luna was instructed to organize a team of attendants to locate the supplies and ensure their proper distribution. At first, confusion reigned. The staff were uncertain, whispers of frustration circulating, and minor errors beginning to pile up. Luna stepped forward, steady and composed. She remembered the Alpha King's guidance. Observe first, anticipate, and act deliberately. She assessed the situation, noticing which attendants were capable of following subtle instructions and which needed additional guidance. "Let's prioritize clarity," she instructed calmly, offering gentle directions while guiding the group by example. "We will search systematically, check all storage areas, and report discrepancies immediately. Work together and remain calm." The attendants looked at her with surprise, but gradually followed her lead. Luna moved through the storage rooms, noting misplaced boxes, mislabeled supplies, and minor organizational errors. She delegated tasks based on observation, encouraged cooperation, and maintained composure even as confusion threatened to grow. The Alpha King observed quietly, his amber eyes reflecting approval. He said nothing, allowing her to lead independently, a subtle reminder that he trusted her judgment. Luna felt a surge of confidence as she guided the attendants, corrected errors, and ensured that the supplies were efficiently distributed. Once the first challenge was resolved, the second presented itself. A sudden structural problem had arisen in the Palessa Minor, but urgent issue with a section of the garden wall that threatened to disrupt daily routines. Luna was instructed to coordinate a response team while keeping the surrounding areas safe. This challenge required quick thinking, vigilance, and leadership under pressure. Luna observed the situation carefully, noting potential hazards, the flow of people, and the resources available. She instructed the attendants on safety measures, delegated tasks, and monitored progress, adjusting plans as necessary. The Alpha King remained nearby, a silent anchor of support. He intervened only when necessary, allowing Luna to take initiative. She realized that trust was not simply about following orders, it was about acting responsibly with the freedom to make decisions and the understanding that guidance was available when needed. By mid, both challenges had been addressed successfully. Luna's composure, observation, and leadership had guided the staff through unexpected difficulties, earning their respect and cooperation. She felt a quiet sense of pride, tempered by the knowledge that real challenges required vigilance, patience, and resilience. The final challenge was personally controlled scenario, designed by the Alpha King to test her response to subtle deception. A member of the palace staff was instructed to act suspiciously, attempting to mislead her while she observed the environment. Luna felt a familiar tension in her chest, but she grounded herself in the lessons of the past weeks. Observation, anticipation, composure, and trust, these were her tools. She watched carefully, noting subtle cues, discrepancies, and inconsistencies. The staff member attempted to mislead her, suggesting false locations for important items. Luna recognized the inconsistencies, anticipated the correct path, and addressed the situation calmly and effectively. The deception was revealed, and she responded with composed correction, ensuring that the task was completed without disruption. The Alpha King approached her quietly, amber eyes reflecting pride. "You have handled today's challenges with composure, vigilance, and leadership. You anticipated outcomes, guided others effectively, and maintained trust in yourself. That is the mark of someone who has truly grown." Luna felt a quiet warmth of accomplishment. The challenges had been demanding, but they demonstrated the depth of her growth. She had applied the lessons of courage, vigilance, trust, resilience, and leadership in real, dynamic situations, and she had succeeded as the sun set, painting the palace gardens in shades of gold and rose. Luna and the Alpha King walked together through the courtyard. The staff moved efficiently around them, the palace restored to its harmonious rhythm. "Each challenge you face," the Alpha King said softly, "will prepare you for the unexpected. Life is rarely predictable. Strength is not measured by absence of difficulty, but by the ability to remain composed, observe carefully, and act effectively. Today, you have proven yourself capable of that strength. Luna nodded, absorbing his words. She realized that her journey was far from over, but each step had built a foundation of confidence, skill, and composure. The Alpha King's guidance had transformed fear into preparation, doubt into resilience, and uncertainty into purposeful action. That night, as Luna reflected in her quarters, she understood that facing unexpected challenges was not merely about solving problems, it was about trusting herself, applying her skills, and guiding others with clarity and calm. She had learned that true strength was a combination of vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and leadership, all working in harmony. The palace, once a place of uncertainty and lessons in survival, had become a sanctuary of growth and empowerment. And Luna, under the Alpha King's mentorship, felt a quiet certainty. She was not only capable of facing the unexpected, she was ready to thrive in the midst of it, confident in her skills and supported by a protector who believed in her potential. As the moonlight spilled across the palace gardens, Luna felt a deep sense of resolve. Each challenge, each lesson, and each success had strengthened her, preparing her for the trials yet to come. And in that quiet night, she understood that growth was not a destination, it was a journey, guided by vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and the subtle bond of mentorship that had become her anchor. The palace was quieter than usual that morning. Soft light filtered through the tall windows of the library, illuminating rows of ancient tomes and polished wooden tables. Luna walked in, notebook in hand, feeling a quiet anticipation. Today, the Alpha King had promised a different kind of lesson, one not in vigilance, courage, or leadership, but in understanding and trust. He awaited her near the grand fireplace, amber eyes calm but reflective. There was a weight to his presence today, a subtle gravity that Luna had not noticed before. She approached quietly, aware that something significant was about to unfold. "Good morning, Luna," he said, voice low yet steady. "Today, I will share with you a part of my past story that I rarely reveal. Understanding it is not merely about knowledge, but about trust. Trust is built when one is willing to be seen, to share what is personal, and to accept the presence of another without judgment. Are you ready to listen?" Luna nodded, curiosity and respect mingling in her chest. She had learned much from him already, yet she sensed that this lesson would deepen their bond in a profound way. She took a seat nearby, attentive and focused. The Alpha King's gaze drifted to the window, amber eyes distant. "I was not always as steadfast, as composed, or as vigilant as you see me now," he began. "In my youth, I faced challenges that tested my strength, my patience, and my judgment. There were moments when failure seemed inevitable, and moments when trust was betrayed. I learned, through those experiences, the value of vigilance, the necessity of composure, and the power of trust, not blind trust, but trust earned and shared." Luna listened intently, sensing the gravity in his words. The Alpha King's past, often veiled in authority and calm, was now laid bare in subtle, honest fragments. She realized that he was offering her a rare glimpse into the experiences that had shaped him, not as a ruler, but as a protector, a mentor, and a being who had faced adversity much like she had. "There was a time," he continued, "when I had to make choices that weighed heavily on my conscience, decisions about protection, leadership, and responsibility. I learned that strength alone is insufficient. One must also understand, guide, and inspire. Vigilance without understanding leads to fear. Courage without composure leads to rashness. Trust without wisdom leads to betrayal. Each lesson I teach you stems from the lessons I have learned, often through hardship." Luna felt a quiet reverence. The Alpha King, often so composed and commanding, had lived through experiences that demanded resilience, judgment, and moral clarity. She began to understand that his guidance was not abstract, was forged from personal trials, successes, and failures. He turned his gaze toward her, amber eyes, steady and direct. "I share this with you not to burden you, but to allow you to see that guidance comes from experience, and trust is reciprocal. Just as I trust you to learn, to observe, and to act with integrity, I trust that you can accept this part of me, my past, my lessons, and my intentions." Luna felt a warmth spread through her chest. The Alpha King's openness was both humbling and affirming. She had learned to trust him through guidance, observation, and shared experiences. But now that trust deepened as she saw the person behind the authority, the experiences that had shaped his vigilance, courage, and wisdom. "Why are you sharing this now?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Why reveal it to me?" "Because you have grown," he replied quietly. "You have demonstrated vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and leadership. You have faced unexpected challenges and navigated them with composure. You are ready to understand not just lessons in skill, but lessons in life and the burdens that accompany them. True guidance requires understanding, and true trust requires openness." Luna reflected on his words. She realized that the Alpha King's mentorship was more than instruction, it was a shared journey of growth and understanding. The bond they had built was founded on observation, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and now, mutual respect and openness. Throughout the morning, he shared more about his experiences, moments of doubt, instances of difficult decisions, and the subtle ways he had learned to guide others without imposing. He spoke of victories tempered by responsibility, lessons learned through observation and patience, and the value of composure under pressure. Luna took careful notes, not merely recording events, but internalizing the lessons they conveyed. She understood now that leadership, protection, and guidance were not about authority alone. They were about understanding, empathy, and the ability to inspire confidence through example. "You see," the Alpha King said, "as the sun reached its peak, my past is not meant to define me, but to guide those I mentor. You have grown into someone capable of applying these lessons, not through imitation, but through understanding and insight. That is why I share this with you now." Luna felt a deep sense of gratitude. The Alpha King's openness was a gift, an affirmation of her growth, and a reminder that trust was a living, reciprocal bond. She realized that by sharing his past, he had not only deepened her understanding of guidance, but also strengthened the connection between them. In the afternoon, they walked through the palace gardens. The soft rustle of leaves and the scent of blooming flowers created a serene backdrop for reflection. Luna felt the weight of the Alpha King's experiences, yet also the assurance that his guidance was founded on wisdom, composure, and care. "Sharing your past. It helps me understand you better," Luna said quietly. "It shows me that vigilance, courage, and leadership aren't just skills, they're choices shaped by experience." The Alpha King nodded, amber eyes thoughtful. "Exactly. Lessons are not merely techniques. They are principles forged in the crucible of life. Understanding them in context allows you to apply them with wisdom, not just skill. That is the essence of mentorship and trust." As evening approached, Luna returned to her quarters, reflecting on the day's revelations. The Alpha King's past, once hidden behind authority and composure, was now shared with her in fragments of honesty and insight. She felt a renewed sense of connection, trust, and respect, a bond that went beyond instruction to understanding, mutual regard, and subtle guidance. That night, as moonlight spilled across her room, Luna wrote in her notebook, "Trust is not only given, it is shared. Understanding someone's past allows you to see the lessons behind their guidance. Vigilance, courage, resilience, leadership all are strengthened when paired with empathy and openness. She realized that the Alpha King's mentorship had grown into a partnership not of equals in rank, but of mutual understanding, trust, and shared purpose. And in that quiet night, Luna felt a deep certainty with vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and understanding of the experiences that shaped her protector. She was ready to face the future with composure, insight, and quiet strength. The palace was unusually quiet that morning, the usual bustle replaced by a sense of tension that Luna could not immediately place. She moved cautiously through the corridors, notebook in hand, her senses alert. The Alpha King had requested her presence early, and the amber glow of his eyes as she entered the courtyard hinted that today's lesson would be unlike any before. "Good morning, Luna," he said, his voice calm but carrying a subtle weight. "Today, you will face a test that examines loyalty, vigilance, and composure. This is not a test of obedience, it's a test of discernment, integrity, and your ability to act with insight under pressure. Loyalty is more than trust. It is the choice to act rightly, even when challenged." Luna nodded, aware that the Alpha King's lessons were rarely simple. He had guided her through courage, trust, resilience, and leadership, each building on the other. Now, loyalty would be examined not in theory but in practice. She felt a mixture of anticipation and determination. Grounding herself in the lessons she had learned, the first scenario involved a group of palace attendants, some of whom had been instructed to mislead her intentionally. Their task was subtle: to create minor confusions and conflicting instructions, testing Luna's ability to remain vigilant while maintaining fairness and composure. As the attendants approached, Luna observed carefully. She noticed discrepancies in instructions, hesitation in movement, and subtle cues suggesting intentional misdirection, rather than reacting with frustration or suspicion. She relied on the skills the Alpha King had instilled in her: observation, anticipation, and calm assessment. She spoke clearly and calmly, addressing the group with gentle guidance. "Let us take a step back. Observe the tasks carefully, and follow the most consistent instructions. Mistakes happen when we act hastily. Work together, and remain mindful of details." The attendants looked at her, uncertainty giving way to compliance as her composed presence guided them. Luna noted small adjustments, subtle acknowledgments of her authority and insight. She realized that loyalty was not earned through fear or commanded, was nurtured through clarity, fairness, and composed guidance. After successfully navigating the initial challenge, the Alpha King introduced a more personal test. Luna was given responsibility for ensuring the security of a sensitive palace area, while a controlled scenario unfolded. A minor disturbance was staged, requiring her to assess threats, interpret intentions, and act decisively without unnecessary force. Luna's senses sharpened as she observed the situation. She noticed a staff member acting unusually, another approaching with subtle hesitation, and faint signs of miscommunication among the attendants. Using her judgment, she addressed the situation calmly, providing clear instructions, correcting missteps, and maintaining composure. The Alpha King watched silently from a distance, amber eyes attentive, but allowing her autonomy. Luna felt the weight of responsibility, yet she acted with clarity, demonstrating that loyalty to her role, to her principles, and to the guidance she had received allowed her to navigate complexity effectively. As the scenario concluded successfully, the Alpha King approached her, amber eyes reflecting approval. "You have demonstrated vigilance, composure, and discernment. Loyalty is not blinded as the ability to act rightly, guided by awareness, understanding, and integrity. You have shown that you can uphold trust without compromising judgment. That is true loyalty. Luna felt a quiet pride. She realized that loyalty was not simply following orders, was choosing to act with insight, integrity, and consistency, even when challenged. Her bond with the Alpha King, built on trust and guidance, had given her the confidence to exercise judgment while maintaining allegiance to principles and responsibilities. The final exercise of the day tested her judgment in a subtle scenario of moral choice. Luna was presented with two conflicting requests, one that appeared beneficial but had hidden consequences, and another that required patience, observation, and careful reasoning. She weighed each option, recalling the lessons of vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and leadership. After careful deliberation, Luna chose the path requiring patience and insight, correcting a potential mistake before it escalated. The Alpha King, observing quietly, nodded in approval. Loyalty, he explained, is not a matter of convenience or comfort. It is demonstrated in choices made under uncertainty, when pressure is high, and when personal instincts must align with principle. Today, you have proven that your loyalty is guided by wisdom, not blind adherence. That is the mark of a mature, capable individual. As evening fell, the palace gardens glowed under the soft light of lanterns. Luna walked alongside the Alpha King, reflecting on the lessons of the day. She realized that loyalty was more than trust, it was discernment, integrity, and the ability to act rightly when faced with challenges. The bond she shared with him had grown deeper, rooted in shared experience, guidance, and the freedom to exercise judgment responsibly. You have grown in ways that are visible not only to me, but to those around you, the Alpha King said quietly, amber eyes calm but intense. Loyalty, like courage and trust, is built through understanding and experience. You have proven that you can act with integrity and composure, even under challenge. That is the truest form of loyalty. Luna felt a quiet warmth. The Alpha King's acknowledgement was more than praise, it was recognition of her growth, her discernment, and her capacity to act with integrity under pressure. She understood now that loyalty was not a passive state, but an active choice, one guided by vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, and leadership. That night, as moonlight spilled across her room, Luna wrote in her notebook, "Loyalty is not blind obedience. It is the choice to act with integrity, guided by vigilance, courage, and trust. True loyalty strengthens bonds and fosters understanding, composure, and responsibility." She closed her notebook, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and connection. The Alpha King's mentorship had guided her not only in practical skills, but in principles that shaped character, judgment, and trust. And in that quiet night, Luna understood that loyalty was a living, active bond, one she could uphold with clarity, composure, and confidence, strengthened by the guidance and trust of her protector as she drifted into sleep. She felt a quiet certainty with vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and the ability to act with integrity. She was ready to meet any challenge. The bond with the Alpha King had grown stronger, grounded in mutual respect, trust, and the shared pursuit of growth. And that bond would guide her through whatever lay ahead, steady and unwavering, like the light of the moon over the palace gardens. The palace lay bathed in the gentle glow of morning light, the soft rustle of leaves and distant songs of birds creating a serene harmony. Luna walked slowly through the gardens, notebook in hand, reflecting on the path that had led her to this moment. Weeks of learning, growth, and trials had shaped her each day, a lesson in vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and loyalty as she moved along the stone paths lined with blooming flowers. The Alpha King appeared from beneath a tall archway, amber eyes meeting hers with quiet approval. There was a calm gravity to his presence, a reassurance that had become familiar over time. Luna felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet recognition of the journey they had undertaken together. "Good morning, Luna," he said softly. "Today marks not only the continuation of your lessons, but a reflection on your growth. You have faced challenges, tested your skills, and learned to act with composure, discernment, and integrity. It is time to acknowledge the culmination of that journey." Luna nodded, heart steady but full of anticipation. She had grown immensely since first entering the palace, yet the path of learning never truly ended. Today, however, she sensed a shift in opportunity to solidify her understanding, to reflect on the trust she had built, and to see the strength she had gained. The Alpha King led her to a quiet courtyard, where the staff and attendants moved efficiently, the palace returning to its daily rhythm after a series of tests and exercises. He instructed her to observe, noting both the harmony of operations and the subtle ways her presence had influenced the environment. "You have learned more than techniques," he said, amber eyes steady and reflective. "You have learned to guide, inspire, and act with composure. You have proven that trust, loyalty, and leadership are cultivated through vigilance, courage, and integrity. Now, it is time to see how these lessons shape your understanding of yourself and your future." Luna observed quietly, noting how the attendants responded to her subtle guidance, how minor disruptions were corrected efficiently, and how the palace operated in seamless cooperation. She realized that her growth was no longer abstract, was visible, tangible, and reflected in the environment she now helped influence. "You have become a capable leader," the Alpha King continued, "not because of authority alone, but because of observation, patience, and understanding. You have shown courage not only in facing challenges, but in trusting yourself. You have cultivated loyalty through integrity and composure, and you have built trust by recognizing the value of guidance while learning to act independently." Luna felt a quiet pride. The words resonated deeply, affirming the lessons she had internalized. She realized that the Alpha King's mentorship had been about more than protection, it had been about empowerment, guiding her to develop skills, judgment, and confidence that were uniquely her own. As they walked through the gardens, the Alpha King introduced one final exercise, a reflection of all she had learned. Luna was asked to observe, anticipate, and suggest improvements for the palace operations, using her judgment to guide subtle changes that would enhance efficiency, safety, and harmony. She moved deliberately, noting patterns, assessing potential issues, and offering guidance with calm authority. The attendants responded positively, following her subtle direction, and minor corrections were implemented smoothly. Luna realized that this exercise was not a test but a demonstration of her growth, a culmination of weeks of lessons applied in a meaningful and effective way. "Observe how your choices influence others," the Alpha King said quietly. "Leadership is not about immediate recognition or control, it is about the lasting effect of thoughtful action. Your ability to act with composure, integrity, and insight strengthens not only yourself, but everyone around you." Luna nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She understood now that trust, vigilance, courage, resilience, leadership, and loyalty were interconnected, not isolated skills, but a framework for living with purpose, integrity, and awareness. She had grown from a cautious, wary individual into someone capable of guiding, inspiring, and making sound judgments under pressure. As afternoon approached, The Alpha King led her to a terrace overlooking the palace gardens. The sun cast a golden glow, illuminating the flowers, stone paths, and the tranquil reflection pools. Luna felt a profound sense of calm, a quiet certainty that the lessons she had learned were now part of her, not imposed, but internalized. "You have come far, Luna," the Alpha King said, amber eyes reflecting pride. "The journey of growth is never truly complete, but today you have demonstrated mastery of the principles that guide vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and loyalty. You have faced challenges, learned from them, and acted with integrity." Luna felt the weight of his words settle gently in her chest. It was more than acknowledgement, it was affirmation of the bond they had built, the trust they had cultivated, and the guidance that had shaped her growth. She realized that the Alpha King's mentorship was both a foundation and a guidepost, allowing her to navigate the complexities of life with composure and confidence. "Thank you," she said softly, "for your guidance, your trust, and for believing in me even when I doubted myself." The Alpha King's expression softened, amber eyes warm and steady. "You earned it, Luna. Your growth is the result of your courage, vigilance, and willingness to learn. Trust is reciprocal, and you have proven yourself capable of earning it. The bond we share is built on shared experience, respect, and the understanding that guidance is most effective when combined with independent judgment." They spent the rest of the afternoon in quiet reflection, walking through the palace grounds, discussing lessons learned, and considering the challenges yet to come. Luna felt a sense of completeness, a harmony between what she had been, what she had become, and the potential of what she could achieve. As the sun set, casting a warm glow across the palace gardens, Luna realized that the journey had not only strengthened her skills, but also nurtured her spirit. The Alpha King had taught her more than vigilance, courage, or leadership. He had shown her the value of trust, integrity, and mutual respect. She understood now that true growth was measured not only by skill, but by character, composure, and the bonds cultivated through shared experience. That night, as moonlight spilled across her room, Luna wrote in her notebook one final entry: "Growth is not a destination, but a journey of learning, reflection, and action. Trust, vigilance, courage, resilience, leadership, and loyalty are interconnected principles that guide both action and character. True mentorship nurtures independence, insight, and the ability to act with integrity." She closed her notebook, feeling a deep sense of peace and accomplishment. The palace, once a place of uncertainty and challenges, had become a sanctuary of learning, growth, and trust. And Luna, under the guidance and mentorship of the Alpha King, felt ready to face the future with clarity, composure, and quiet confidence as she drifted into sleep. The palace gardens bathed in silver moonlight. Luna understood that her journey was ongoing, yet the foundation had been laid. Vigilance, courage, trust, resilience, leadership, and loyalty were no longer abstract lessons, but living principles that would guide her through life. And with the Alpha King's mentorship and support, she knew she was prepared to meet any challenge, navigate any uncertainty, and embrace the future with steady confidence. In that quiet night, the bond between mentor and student, protector and guided, had never felt stronger, and Luna knew, with certainty, that a future built on trust, growth, and mutual respect awaited. A future she was ready to embrace fully.